Hello everybody, my name is Nelson and welcome to part 3 of how to add a hard to kill sprite to the Android game app that we're developing. When we left off in 2, we were here. We're just about ready to start adding the information we need to how to play and locate the new sound effects that we're going to have for our hard to kill character. So basically we're going to add it right here, and here it is. So what I need you to do is just pause the video right now, type all this information in, and when you're done, hit resume, and then I'll explain what we had to do here. So please hit pause. Okay, hopefully you're back now, and let me explain exactly what's going on here. Of course, we know the comment lines, and basically this is the Red Menace sound effects hard to kill character 1. There's a reason why I call this character 1. When testing this out, I created two hard to kill character 1 and character 2. Because I want to see how easily I will be able to expand this to add more characters. It worked fine. And the reason I did is because I had to code it a certain way so I can easily add new characters. So I had to take into account character 1 and character 2. But, you know, we're just going to do one character, and on your own you can add 2 unless someone asks me and I have the time. I could show you how to add another hard to kill character. But basically this is why I call it character 1. Now here, this is a variable we made on top. It's sound hard to kill no, and basically this is the variable that's going to hold where to locate, and we already know how we're going to play it through the sound manager up here in line 48. So we're just going to store the variables, the location of the file we want for each variable we created. So this is sound hard to kill no is equal to basically loaded from this file in raw called mail no. Same thing with hard to kill help, loaded from the file in the raw file called mail help. And then the last one we're gonna is the sound hard to kill explosion equals load from a folder called raw, and it's going to be the file called mail help explosion. And basically that's it for that. We know now the system knows where to find the sound effects that we want to play, and we store that information into these 3 variables. Okay, now that we've done that, let's go ahead and go all the way down here. And oh, wait a minute, before we go, let's stop right here. Here is the sprite array, create sprite array method, and basically this is what we said before. This adds the sprites into our sprite array, as you know. And of course we're going to add one thing, and we're going to add it right here. And I'm going to add this here. Go ahead and pause the video so you can type this line in, and when you're done, just hit resume. Okay, hopefully you're back, and this is plain and simple, straightforward. Sprite add, and you're just going to add the sprite, the Red Menace, which is in the folder, in a drawable folder, and it's the Red Menace. And basically, it's a hard to kill character 2. You can actually put down Red Menace here if you want, so you know which one it is, and that's it. Now you added the Red Menace to your game, and of course, when it first loads, it's going to load this method. It's going to load this in, and you're done. So doing that, let's go ahead and go down some more and to this last part. Now this method is basically what I call key calling, the meat and potatoes of it. This register a touch event onto the screen, store it to an I, and then the old code would say now just remove it. I added this information, which is play the sound effects. And if you have to follow more than one of my tutorials to understand basically what this internal if is, which is if they elected to play the sound effects, you play the sound effects. Now you miss it. So now we're going to modify this, and again, like I said down here before, we're going to have to keep track of all 3 sprites now, so we can keep track of it. And we're going to use m sprite as 5, as this is the highest number, so we can always say anything less equal to or less than 5 is males. For the females, we're going to store the information f sprite. We're going to say if I is equal to or less than f sprite, which is 11, and greater than m sprite, which is 5, was greater than 5, equal to or less than 11, there will be females, and as you can see they are. And of course the last else if statement is going to be if I is equal to Red Menace, which is whatever it is right now is equal to 12, then it's the Red Menace. So right now we only got 2. We got one that looks for the male and plays its appropriate sound effects. Else, if it's not that, then it must be a female and it plays its appropriate. So now we're going to change these. We're going to have to grow these so that it takes into account all 3 variables. So we're going to start off with this here. We're gonna add a little statement. This is for male sprites and sound. So if maybe let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of that. I think I'm gonna put it in the wrong place. So we don't get confused, we can just put this statement here saying this if statement is for playing sound effects for the male. And so the first thing it says, we come in here and we say, okay, if it happens to be a male, if I is less than or equal to now, because we know mSprite is initiate to 5, so I has to be less than or equal to 5, which means it's mSprite, which is 5, then it says male sprite do this. First thing you're going to do, you're going to diminish the mSprite to 1. That's the male sprite because it will get deleted. But you also, as we learned in my first tutorial, you're going to have to reduce the female sprite. Because female sprite is greater and it's going to be moved down 1. And the red menace is going to be moved down. Once you remove that sprite from the sprite array list, red menace is going to get moved down the list in the sprite array list, like we showed you in the first tutorial. So we know we have to diminish all 3. We already talked about it. Then it's going to play the sound effects, and only if it's on. If it's on, it's going to play it. If it's not, it's going to skip over this else if. And then that's it. The male's done. Now we're going to do the females, and this is the old female, and instead of just being else, we're going to make it else if because it has more than one option. And we're going to say, like I told you before, it's going to have 2 parameters. Greater than 5 and equal to and less than 11 is all female sprite. So we're going to have to keep that in account. So we're going to say, basically, if I is greater than the male sprite tracking number, which at the beginning is 5, and this is how you say and in Java, and I is less than or equal to the female sprite, then you do this. And basically this is saying if it's larger than the males and equal to or smaller than the female highest number, then you do this else statement. And the first thing we always do is we diminish, because we know when it leaves this else statement, next thing it's going to do is going to remove that sprite from the list, which is going to cause the sprite array list to diminish 1. We're going to have to start reducing everything. And like we told you before, when you get to the female, when you reduce a female sprite array list, you don't have to reduce a male. I messed this up. Of course, minus minus, like I said before, means diminish this variable by 1, and it can. And so we're not going to say diminish the male sprite, because as we said before, if you diminish a female, everything below the female stays the same. So you don't have to diminish mSprite because it'll stay the same. But you do have to diminish the female sprite itself and the red menace, because it is going to shift down 1, as we seen before in the first tutorial. And then that's it. That's all you have to do for this one. Well, I made a mistake. Let's go back to the male part. This is for the males. We're going to come down here. We're going to copy these 2 lines. This is where the game removes the sprite from the screen and show the blood spot. We're going to just copy, and we're going to paste it right up here inside the if that controls the male sprite. We're just going to say paste. So that way when we go into this if statement, if it is a male sprite, we're going to do everything we need to do, play the sound effects, and then we're going to actually remove the sprite from the screen and show the blood spot. We're also going to do it for the female in this if statement. If it's a female, we're going to come right down here, and it's line 177, hit enter, create space, and paste the part that removes the sprite for the female. If it's a female, it's going to come in here and remove the sprite from the screen, and then it's going to show the blood spot. So since we have them now in the if statements, we really don't need it down here because it's already going to be gone. So we can just highlight this and hit delete. Now up here, we're going to also add the statement for female. So we know this if statement governs the females. Now we're going to come down here and we're going to add another else if. And this else if is going to govern, again, the red menace. So we're going to say if you touch, whatever you touch is equal to, and equal to is two equal signs. I think we've been through this before. The red menace, if it's equal to the red menace variable tracking number, if whatever variable every sprite you touch on the screen, if it is equal to the red menace tracking number, then all we're going to do is runs the method for. All right, I just typed this in. Go ahead and pause the video now and go ahead and type this information in. I'll wait till you get done. And when you're done, just hit resume. So pause the video. Okay, hopefully you're back now. And what I'm doing here is, unlike these two other if statements where we're actually reducing the sprites, the variable tracking numbers for each sprite, and we're playing the sound, we're not going to do that here. What we're going to do here, we're going to run a method in here. And basically what you do in here, you call a method, and basically what you're basically saying is go and run this method. Now, what's a method? And most of you know what a method is, but basically it's just a chunk of code, like a small program. And in this code, this if statement, you say, okay, now run over there, wherever this method is, run it, and when you're done, come right back here. And that's what a method is. Now, when you look at this line, all this is saying is run the method. Now, it looks like you can look at this as a math problem, an algebra problem, and you notice there's an equal sign here. You know, on the left side, there's not much to do of the left side of the equal sign, but it seems like you could do something on the right side. And what you see is this word that has error and then this parenthesis. Now, the first one says hard to kill sprite is an error. Well, that's the name of the method. And since we haven't created it yet, there's an error. And I made that name up all by myself. You can just make it any name up. And a name always is followed with parentheses. Now, the parentheses can be empty or it can have something in it. I chose to put something in here called lives for red menace. If you remember in video 2, we created this variable as an integer, and it has a value of 4 already. And so basically what this says is run this method called hard to kill sprite. And by the way, take this integer with you, which is equal to 4. And real quick, what the method is, and it'll be right above this touch event, is just basically you have the name and you have parentheses, and you can't use this integer lives for red menace in that method. What you have to do is create a brand new integer that will accept anything you're bringing in there. And since this is the integer, that variable has to be integer. And so basically in the parentheses there, you'll say integer and you'll make up a name. And I made sprite life. And basically that's saying create this integer. And so now when you run to it, it's going to say, oh yeah, we have an integer and you have an integer to receive it. So now sprite life becomes whatever lives for red menace is. And right now it's 4 when you first start the game. And basically all that's going to do is the top part, male, female if statement did. They're going to play the appropriate sound effects for that life, which is sprite life, and then it's going to reduce sprite life for 1, and the last line literally is going to say return sprite life. And again, like I said before, when you return exactly where you left off, and what you're doing is you're returning that variable sprite life with you. And basically this line is now going to read lives for red menace equal sprite life. What is been diminished by 1 is now 3, so lives for red menace is 3. Then it keeps going on with this code, and it says, well, if lives for red menace is equal to 0, it doesn't, it'll just skip over that. And then it'll go to the top of this touch event and say, okay, we're waiting for you to touch the screen again. And it'll keep doing that. And every time it's the red menace, it'll diminish lives for red menace by 1, and until it becomes 0. When it comes back and sprite life is on this side of this equation and it's equal to 0, then lives for red menace is equal to 0. So now this if statement becomes true. If lives for red menace is equal to 0, which it does, it's going to move it from the screen, and then it's going to show the blood spot. And that's it for this tutorial. We're running out of time. This is the 3rd video of this 4-part tutorial on how to make a hard to kill sprite. Again, this is the 3rd one, so thank you for listening. I'll see you on the 4th video.